Good afternoon again. Welcome to Lunch and Learn. Today, this workshop delves into the process of identifying and preserving items in your home that hold significant emotional or financial value. We are really fortunate today to have Caitlin Adkins with us. Caitlin is a life coach and a professional organizer. She is the visionary force behind Spaces Organized and Styled, which is a prominent holistic residential organizing firm. She firmly believes that true organization goes beyond merely decluttering physical spaces and involves the whole individual. She comes with a diverse and extensive certifications that I won't take up time because it's quite a few, but they are listed in the invitation and announcement. And through Spaces Organized and Style, she continues to redefine the significance of residential organizing. And you'll see her passion and expertise are going to come out in her presentation. So Caitlin, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. And thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much. I hope my audio is okay, so let me know if anybody cannot hear me. But I am really excited to be able to share and talk with you guys today about selecting your treasures. I will share my screen so I can show you my PowerPoint. So yes, I own Spaces Organized and Styled, which is a residential organizing company here in Warrenton. I think it's important that we kind of go over a little bit about selecting your treasures. So this is everything that we're going to talk about today. Now, I did leave some time at the end to open it up for Q&A if you have questions, if there are specific things that you're currently struggling with or you wanted to get some help or guidance on, please feel free to ask me at the end because I want to be a resource and share all of the information that I have with you guys. Now, this I have to...
Caitlin, I just want to mention your screen. It isn't only your slide. So as you had it earlier, so I don't know if there's another step. It's fine if, but it's.
Oh, I do see it. Yeah, down here. It says it's being paused.
Yeah.
Hold on just a second. I don't know why it's keep pausing on me. Sorry. We can only troubleshoot the errors and then it doesn't work.
And we had it going earlier, right before we started, like, which is Murphy's Law.
And okay, so you can't see any of that, huh?
So now, right now you're not sharing, and then we could see all the extra slides before. It wasn't the screen that you had before we started. I mean, it's fine if we need to move forward with that. I just know that you had it differently before, so I thought I would mention it. Ah, there it is. Perfect. Yes.
Okay,
wonderful.
We'll see how that goes.
Yes.
I hope that this works. Can you see the next one that says the? Okay, great. Well, we'll go with that. So these are all of the things that we're going to talk about today. Now, this is the second presentation I've actually given today, and so I think it's helpful for you guys to get an idea of who I am and a little bit about my background and why, I don't know why I'm here kind of talking about this. So I was born and raised in St. Louis. I have a bachelor's degree in business management with a minor in government world affairs from the University of Tampa. And I spent a brief moment in Afghanistan working with women and girls in the post-Taliban era before I went to law school and moved to DC, hoping I would be moving back to Afghanistan, which is not a possibility. I met my husband and I moved out to Virginia, where he is from, and I started a whole new direction. I loved organizing throughout all of my different careers and found that this was a common thread. So I decided to open up an organizing company, and I took a different approach than what I think you will probably see with some of the other traditional organizers that could be on TV or what you see, because what I have found is that working with my clients, it's never about the stuff, which is kind of what we're going to talk about today, which is selecting your treasures. It's always about what feelings and emotions lie underneath the things. So I really tap into what is the root issue, what is going on in the home or with the family, We can work in business spaces as well. So sometimes it's what's happening in the office, but I think that's super important to get down to actually the root cause in order to be able to actually fix the problem and come up with a creative solution. Can you see the notes here on the side? You can? Okay. Well, you're not supposed to. Oh, you can't. Okay,
We
good.
can't. I was just saying, it looks great. We can just see it
Okay.
Mary's slide, so it looks
Okay,
good.
great. So we want to focus on happiness. When we are selecting our treasures, while we definitely want to take into consideration what is the financial value of things, that's not our main goal. It is an aspect of it for sure, but our main purpose on selecting our treasures, whether that be downsizing, what I like to call right sizing, because it's never about, downsizing has somewhat of a negative connotation with it, and that can cause a lot of stress and fear and anxiety with people. So it's never about downsizing, it's about right sizing our space. So if you're currently living in a home that you've lived in for 30 plus years or 20 plus years, your adult children have grown up and moved out, maybe we don't need a 4 or 5 bedroom home anymore. Maybe we can get by with a 2 bedroom or even a 1 bedroom home. So it's not about downsizing, it's about right sizing the space that's appropriate for our needs now at the time. So when we do this, we want to focus on selecting the treasures that we're going to be taking with us. And this is all about some sentimental value. So focusing more from the aspect of, am I happy with these items? Do they mean something to me? Were they given to me by somebody that I care about? Rather than I spent X amount of dollars on this dining room set and now I need to make sure that I get the value out of it back. So everything cannot be important, because if everything is important, then that means that nothing is important. And I think it's really, it means a lot, especially to your family and friends, when you pare down the number of items and you make it super simple for them to say, when they walk into your home, they think, okay, these are the things that bring you the most joy, that these are the things that matter to you the most, because you've taken the time to be very diligent and selective with the things that are in your home, the items that are in your home. It's not about getting rid of everything. That's not practical. We can't live with nothing. But it is about finding what is actually the most meaningful to you. And obviously focusing on the well-being, the emotional aspect. Oftentimes when we are creating emotional attachment to things, we oftentimes overlook how critical that emotional component can be, and the wellness and the well-being of the person. We don't want to turn this into a chore. So by no means is this going to be something that you want to dread in the morning doing. There may be some days that while you're going through it, you may not enjoy every process of it, but it shouldn't be like pulling teeth every day to go through this and to look through these items. This should be something fun. It should be something that you'll feel a lightness with you, that you will, by going through your items, you're going to see what is the most meaningful to you. And so it's almost like a big treasure hunt is the way that you should look at it. Mental health is obviously very closely tied with this. We oftentimes don't realize the amount of clutter and physical objects within our eyesight and how much that drains on us. So we definitely want to keep mental well-being top of mind. If things are becoming a little bit too heavy in the sense of too emotional, we want to take a step back. We want to slow down. We want to get support and assistance where needed, but we want to make it fun. Keeping in mind too that memories can be triggered by physical objects. And so what memories do you want to be able to recall, and what items are going to trigger those memories for you that are happy memories? So communicating with family. Before we start anything, we want to talk to our family members and our friends. We want to discuss family heirlooms and treasured items. I will often see that clients first want to talk to their children to see if perhaps they want anything. Even making the assumption that children don't want anything is the wrong one to have. They'll say, oh, my children already said they don't want anything. It's always good to double check, triple check. Feelings could change, thoughts can change. And I think it's important that once adult children have grown up and moved out, they are settled. So they're not still in internships, they're not bouncing from job to job or still relocating. Like when they are settled and they have a home, maybe they're married, maybe they have children, when they're stable and settled, we need to make sure that we are passing along our items or their items to them. So making sure that you're having conversations, that you're asking them, that you're getting clarification. It's also good just to maybe get a baseline on what the family heirlooms are or any treasures that you may have. So if you have something that was given to you by somebody you care about, communicating that with your family is very, very important. Because if they wanted to find something in the future, they need to know what those items are. This is also the perfect time to encourage digital organizing. What we find is that usually there's one member of the family that has kind of become the family historian, that is the collector of all of the family photographs or the family documents, that has all of the family knowledge dating back to whenever. It is a good idea to start putting that onto either a piece of paper or even better onto digital and sharing that with the entire family. That is a topic that is completely separate, digital organizing and archiving, but this is a very, very, very good time to start looking at that, especially when it comes to knowing that the quality of these items, of photographs, of VHS tapes, of family movies, slides, etc., that is only going to diminish over time. So getting those digitized now, and there are a bunch of organizations out there that can do it. There's also some locally who can convert those for you. The quicker that you can get those converted to digital, the better that's going to be. We also, I just want to make sure. Oh yeah, planning on who which family members are going to be getting what items. I have somebody very close to me whose family has created a binder, and all of the siblings take turns going around and picking something that they're going to want to have, a family heirloom or item. While that may not be practical for everybody's family, I think it does help to eliminate any fighting that could potentially happen. And everybody is on the same page. Everybody knows whose turn it is next. Everybody is aware that if a vehicle gets sold, that person is then entitled to a second selection or pick. I think it's a lot of work. Sometimes it's a difficult conversation for the family to have, but I think it's very, very important that the family does it. And it just helps in the future, and it helps to cut down on anything. Now, this is a photo of an example of a client that we worked with. Now, her adult children had moved out. They were resettled into another state. And these were some of the things that were kind of left behind that were collected into the garage. And as you can see, these are in cardboard boxes, which I don't recommend in garage spaces because they are susceptible to water damage as well as insects. And then we also have some plastic totes. The one thing that we want to keep in mind is that if the adult children are gone and left, or really anybody in the family, our homes cannot be a long-term storage solution for them. So this is where we can sort of pick with some low-hanging fruit to kind of get this ball rolling on maybe selecting some of those things in our home that are most important to us. We can actually go through and see what does not belong to us and what can we easily move out the door. This is going to help to build momentum for the rest of the project. It's going to help build self-confidence and courage. You're going to be having some conversations. This is also a really good time to set some boundaries and expectations. So if you have somebody that says, I do want something, whether that be a piece of furniture or an artwork or even their boxes of items, there needs to be a deadline when they come and collect those things. And it needs to be very clear. If they are local to you, I don't recommend going and dropping that off, but you can. I would say that if they're out of state, we need to have concrete plans that they are going to be coming and so collecting those items in their possessions. This is also a really good time to set boundaries on when we are moving things out of our home. We cannot make the assumption that our niece Sally wants something, and to just say she wants it, I should give it to her, she's going to like it. That is not selecting the treasures. That's actually pushing that off onto somebody else, and it's very intrusive onto her home. And it's almost a little bit forceful to say, this is something that I want you to have, and you have to keep it, because that's a lot of guilt that then comes onto that person, that now they have to carry that they have to, oh, so-and-so gave this to me, I've got to keep it. And I think that we can all say that we've been in situations where we were given something that maybe wasn't our aesthetic, that we didn't really enjoy, but there's a lot of emotions attached to it. So really anything like that in the home, having clear boundaries, not just for yourself and your home, but also respecting those wishes of other people as well. We need to disconnect at this point, some of the attachments that we may have, the emotional attachments between our things and our possessions, and ourself, keeping in mind that our feelings and emotions live within us, they don't live within our things. So while they are great reminders and they can be triggers for memories, the item in the thing is not the memory itself. So if you're having a difficult time kind of just detaching that, keeping in mind that your physical items are not the actual event itself, or they're not the love, or they are not the memory that you're hoping to gain back. These are some of the quotes that I was thinking about that my clients have recently said to me when we were going through some of this. I had a client in particular, she is nowhere near ready to move out of her home. She knows that it will be happening in the future, but there is no date and time. We worked together for about a little over a year, and at every single session, without fail, it was like a new awakening for her that she would say, "This feels so liberating." And we really did start with some of that low-hanging fruit and some of the things that she knew she just didn't need, whether that be her daughter's or that be somebody else's. And we started there. And at every single session, she would come to me and say, "This feels so liberating. This feels so liberating." At the end, she would just say, "I feel so much lighter." Because again, we don't realize just how much of our stuff is sitting on our shoulders when it doesn't need to be. I also had another client who her daughter was close by, and there was a lot of family paperwork and admin paperwork that was in the home. And she would just kept saying, "I don't want my daughter to have to go through all this. I don't want her to have to sort through the paperwork." While she and I spent a lot of time together going through the paperwork, it was easier for my client and I to do that because we were familiar with what it was associated to, whereas the daughter had no idea what any of this paperwork meant. So it was so much, it was a lot of time, but it was a lot less time than what it would have been. A third client of mine, she had an upcoming pending surgery, and she was very stressed about it, very nervous about this surgery, understandably so. And so she wanted to make sure that she had all of her ducks in a row, all of everything was perfect the way it needed to be. And she just kept saying, "I want to make this easy for my children. I want to make this easy for my children." She didn't want them to have to consider anything, have to worry about anything. We made sure that when the time came for the surgery, everything was very, very, very clear, where everything was, where all of her treasured items, essentially is what they were, was very clear in the home, and there was documentation for everything. So when we go to select some of our sentimental items, like I said, obviously value, evaluating the sentimental value as well as the financial value. Prioritizing, of course, the sentimental value. It can be a little disheartening to see that sometimes the financial cost of things cannot be recouped, that
Right.
some of the items we've purchased, whether that be more recently or even in the past, we cannot get that investment back on. So we want to focus more on the emotional side of this. We also want to prioritize any significant possessions. So again, going back to, was this given to you by somebody? Does this trigger a memory? Is it something that, if you were to pare down your entire home, or if you are moving from maybe a 4 or 5 bedroom down into a 2 or 1 bedroom, keeping in mind that at least those bedrooms all need to be completely clear. That amount of space needs to be gone. So we want to prioritize the significant possessions in those rooms or within the whole home. Also remembering that this does not have to be a one and done deal. We can take multiple rounds of edits to go through this. So if you are looking in the future to move, we don't have to only do this once over. We can do a couple of sweeps through the home, keeping in mind the square footage that you will be right sizing to. And then on the back end of that, or on the flip side, after you've moved in the home, you've unpacked and you've settled, I'd say roughly 3 months, because 3 months is usually the amount of time frame that it takes to get into the home, get unpacked, look at everything, figure out where everything is going to be, and then realize what the pain points are. So about 3 months in is when I usually get a phone call. And that's when we can come back and we can do another round of edits if things don't fit, if it's not aligning the way that you had thought that it was going to. So keep in mind that this is not a one and done deal. We can go through this and we can do multiple rounds. You will also find that your attachment to things will change over a period of time. I recommend that everybody at least everybody in your household and you specifically needs to have a keepsake box or a memorabilia box. This is just your standard size tote, just one. We only need one, and we don't need multiples. So just try to pare it down to one. And I recommend that everybody goes through this at least once a year. For my clients with really young children, I say that weird period in between Christmas and New Year's where we're all kind of awake, but we're all napping and snacking and just hanging out watching TV is a really great time to pull out that box, go through it together as a family, and you can add anything that was significant to that year. So if you had birthday cards, greeting cards, if you were given something, or if you're walking around your house and you have a trinket, or if you have something from a travel that you no longer want to display, but you still want, this is a great time to go around and start putting that into the box. This is also a good time to take inventory of what's in your box, and you will find that as the years progress or as time moves on, you're not going to want to keep all of the things that are in your box. So this is a good time to start going through all of that, add as well as eliminate. It's also just a fun family activity to do together. Everybody can kind of pull out things, flip through yearbooks. You can take a look at anything. So I recommend doing that, being very selective. When we set the parameter of one box, you really are making sure that you adhere to that. I know sometimes it can be difficult for parents who maybe are still holding on to some of their children's possessions and items. It's perfectly fine to have that, but it needs to go either in their box or in yours. And if they're grown and moved out, their box goes with them. So if you want to keep a pair of baby shoes or a book that you used to read, whatever it may be, then that needs to go into your box. Oftentimes we don't need those items displayed in our home. While we still have an emotional attachment to them, that's perfectly fine. We just don't want that out and about. And so that's where this keepsake or memorabilia box comes into play. Remember, keep it to one. Okay, so when we want to make the decisions a little bit easier for our family, which is essentially what we are doing here, while we very well could keep everything, and that may seem like the easier option, essentially what we're doing here is we're just making this a very simple, easy process for our family. We want to make decisions very easy. We want to I think that we can all maybe have heard of a story, or we all know of somebody, or maybe it's ourselves that have had to go through somebody's home, that have had to make decisions where it was rather difficult. What we want to do is sort of make it easier for the next generation. So it's oftentimes a little bit funny for me to know that we all have experienced this in one form or another, but we don't make it better for anybody else. So we want to set a new tone, and we want to kind of make this, make it a little bit simpler. How do we do that? We go through that decision-making process. We definitely make sure that all of the paperwork is together, that we are collecting any important information, that we are informing the important decision makers of the family. So if you have a power of attorney, if you have a child who has been notified of different items within the home, we want to make sure that this is as collective and as comprehensive as possible. So they are not just informed of, hey, my will is located in this box, this fireproof, waterproof box, but it also, these possessions are the most important to me. This is where you can find passwords, account numbers. So we want to make it as super simple as possible. Again, setting our time limits with our family. So, if you do have adult children, or if you do have family or friends who are storing items in your home, setting those time limits and those boundaries, and also utilizing technology. Oftentimes I get a lot of pushback, or I can get pushback from clients about the technology component. It doesn't have to be as daunting or as scary as what it may seem. I'm not asking to do an entire software program that holds everything. It can just be putting it onto a document on your computer and just marking that as important or urgent, and then communicating that with your family who need to be involved in that. Not all of the family members need to be included in this, but definitely making sure that you're not just telling one person, that you're telling multiple people about this. This is also a really great time to take photos and share There could be videos. So if you're going around your home and you're thinking that an armoire needs to go to your niece, take photos, take a video, send it to her, start to get this ball rolling, start to see if she doesn't respond or answer in a timely manner, then I think we have our answer. We don't need to wait multiple days or weeks to kind of get that answer from her. We pretty much have it. Okay, so what do we do? How do we move these items out of the home? This is oftentimes where I find that partnering with churches or local organizations or charities that you feel passionate about are the best way to move items out of your home. So if you're somebody struggling with releasing that attachment, if you're struggling with releasing the attachment to your items and your things, what causes mean the most to you? Which causes and organizations are on your heart the most? And that right there is the ticket out of the door. Like that is how we're going to be moving things out. Oftentimes I find that clients don't want their things to just go to a landfill, and rightfully so. They shouldn't. They should be repurposed and reused as much as possible. So you will find, for example, we work a lot with the Middleburg Humane Society. They don't just take animal items, but they also have their shop. So you can drop off home items. That's not just, so you'll find that your charity and organization, they can oftentimes take more than what just you think. If you have very high-end luxury items, name brands, like, for example, some of the designer items for women's clothing, this can be consigned and sold. So there is some investment that you could recoup. It's definitely not going to be the initial reinvestment investment that you maybe had made initially, but there is still hope for gaining some money back to that. Women's and children's clothing can be sold within the 3 years of purchase. So if it's older, if it's older than 3 years, it's maybe not in fashion or in style, that those items probably won't be able to be sold. There are a lot of boutique stores in the area that can do some of the buying of clothing, but women's and children's. The unfortunate part is men's clothing is actually extremely hard to sell. In fact, it's almost impossible. And this is because men just don't shop the same way that women do. Women will go into a consignment shop and we will look for items. Men don't care. So there is not a whole lot of market for men's clothing, particularly suits. So I've had a client that had very, very nice custom made from London suits. There is not a market for that. And believe me, I tried. Not only could we not sell them, we almost couldn't give them away either because nobody's wearing suits as much anymore, unless the caveat here is that they are black. Those are really great for waiters as well as musicians. But again, it's a very, very, very small, limited number and selection. I will say that even looking just outside of this area depends on how much time you want to invest and what your risk is. You could go into another area that's a little bit more populated to maybe see if you can sell those items. So definitely call around, see if somebody is accepting things, and definitely call your local charity stores as well, your thrift stores and donation centers, because oftentimes with the men's clothing, they will tell you, please don't bring them. We are working on something within the Fuck Your community to try to overcome this. It's not happened just yet, but we are working on something, and I'm sure you guys will hear about it or be notified if it does come. With your books, DVDs, CDs, and games, there are shops that will actually buy these if you didn't want to donate them, if you just wanted to see if you could get a little bit of money. Again, you sort of just have to kind of weigh the pros and cons and how much risk you want to take. We can definitely, you can travel further out to see if you could sell some more things, but you kind of have to weigh, is this worth the time, the gas, the mileage on my vehicle to be lugging this around to try to get $10, $15. If it is, that's fine. Sometimes it's just a matter of knowing that you did your best to see if there was anything that you could do. Electronics are really essentially just e-waste recycling. So there are a lot of donation or drop-off centers that you can take them to be dropped off and recycled. I will say that Staples currently is doing an amazing job with their recycling. So you can essentially walk in, drop off a printer, which prior to Staples was almost impossible to recycle without paying an arm and a leg at the landfill. So Staples is really great, and they will also give you a little bit of a discount on your next purchase. So that is a great thing. But keeping in mind that just trying to find what aligns most with you. Okay, I also want to talk here a little bit about china, silver, crystal, and furniture. These are the big ones that everybody wants to talk about because these were the ones that cost the most. What can we do if you decide that you no longer want to use or no longer want to keep the china, silver, crystal, and furniture? Again, going back to setting very clear boundaries with your family. I will often find that some of my clients assume that the family china should be passed down to somebody else in the family. And while that very well may be true, keep in mind that not a whole lot of people are using china as frequently as maybe they once were. I would also say that if you're somebody who you yourself haven't used your china in the recent past, or if you can't recall the last time you used it, maybe that's a good indication that it just is not as practical to use anymore. I would suggest that maybe inviting the entire family over for like the last family meal with this china. I have seen clients who will offer to their family members to either take pieces of it. They can take an entire place setting, taking a lot of photos. This is always really good to sort of keep the family memory alive. And it's a great excuse to get the entire family together for a meal, which is always really nice. The other thing that you can do is actually use it. I will say that some of these things, when we go through and select the treasures in our home, we oftentimes find that these things are important, but they're not important to actually use. So whether that be a throw blanket or
Now,
an article of
if I,
clothing, be the china, silver, and crystal, or a piece of furniture. If you're not using that and you're saving that for the best of, well, the best of is today, and so you should be using it. So if it's something that you do want to keep and hold on to, I definitely recommend using it. However, crystal is made with some lead, so it may not be practical for everyday use. So just keep that in the back of your mind as well. Also, silver, it takes a long time to polish and make sure that it looks nice and pristine. You can also partner with auction houses. There are a ton in the area, particularly when you move closer into DC. If you just do a quick search, you will find a lot of auction houses that you can partner with. And some of those things can be sold for a good amount of money. Consult an antique dealer for really high end or really old pieces of furniture. I will say that if you're looking to have your 12 set dining room table, chairs, china cabinet all moved out because it doesn't fit into your right sized home anymore, keep in mind that when you're donating those to thrift stores, that is extremely hard for them to move and for somebody to come in and purchase. Think about who their clientele is and who is coming in to shop in their stores. Oftentimes, you will have families that are just starting out that are living in apartments or small condos. It's not really people who are living in a 3 or 4 bedroom house that have the size for an entire dining room set. So it's hard because there was a lot of cost initially invested in those pieces. But also remember that we have social media videos or YouTube videos now about IKEA hacks, and IKEA furniture is super cheap. So nobody's, to say that the market for that is dwindled is, I mean, that's not even real. It's so small. So if you're not using it, definitely see if you can donate it. Selling it is often really difficult or challenging, but it can be done. So some of the tips and tricks that you guys can use while you're going through and selecting your treasures. Obviously, we want to start well before you think that you're ready. With my clients, I love when they call me and they say they don't even have a date in mind, that they just know they need to move, but there's no set timeline. This is definitely a lot easier than when I get a call from a client who says, I'm moving next week to Florida. While we can make that work, we just want to make sure that there are no mistakes. Oftentimes we find that the client is so stressed and overwhelmed with the entire thought process of everything else that they have to deal with, that when it comes to selecting their treasures, they're not really putting a whole lot of energy into it. So when you call and you say, or you think about this and you say, I want to do this, I know I'm going to be moving in 2 years, 5 years, or sometime down the line, starting well before you think that you need to, is going to help you in deciding what things you actually need to keep and what you don't. what are some of the most important and valuable things and what are not. This also is a really great time for your family to make plans if there is something that they want, as well as getting maybe it's finding a time to come into town. It could be you going through and doing the first initial sweep of all of their possessions or items and getting those collected for them. So it's a lot easier for everybody in the process if we start a lot sooner. So start before you think you're ready. This is also helpful because you're going to be able to see what you can live without. So I have a client right now who is right-sizing her home and her entire family, and they have an offsite storage unit. When they move into their new home in about a month, about 2 months, I've recommended before rushing to the offsite storage unit, which is a temporary storage unit, it's not long-term, that you first live in your home with just the items that you have moved with you, the most essential. And what you will find is that those can be the most peaceful first few months of your new home. I had a client relocate from Hawaii back to Virginia. And while they were waiting for their shipping container with all of their possessions to come, which took 3 months, she said that this was the most peaceful that their home has been because they realized all of the other things in that shipping container were not things that they actually needed. And that this was the time for her and her family to be most at peace in their home. Obviously, going slow. We want to make sure that we're making the proper decisions, that we're not rushing the process. It can take some time to unravel all of our emotions from our physical things, especially if we lived in a home for 30, 25 years, 20 years. That is an entire lifetime of memories, an entire lifetime of possessions. It did not get that way overnight. So unfortunately, we cannot do that all overnight either. And we definitely want to make sure that we're taking the amount of time that's needed to process any emotions that may be coming up, because there definitely will be emotions that come up through the process, good and bad. And we want to make sure that we're not rushing it and leaving any open wounds on the backside of this. So we want to close any loops that we need to close. We want to make sure that we're being very selective. We want to set very small goals. So again, don't go through the whole house in one day. You will get a lot of burnout. So we work in 4-hour sessions with a professional organizer. So I would say no more than 4 hours. I know at the end of 4 hours with a client, not only am I physically exhausted, but I am depleted emotionally as well. And so I need to get back to a good normal. With my clients, I would say, depends on what we're working with. If it's something very traumatic, if it's possessions of a loved one who have maybe passed, that can be about 2 hours, and even less than that. So we go at their pace, take it at your pace, super, super slow. Do not rush it. We also want to let the momentum of the entire project build. So whether that be, and you'll know what's right for you if you wanted to start with some of those low-hanging fruit, or if you wanted to tackle the worst head on. That's entirely up to you. Just go very, very slow. And you will find that as you continue on the process, hopefully it's several months to years, that your momentum on this is going to pick up. You're going to get excited about it. You're going to see how much different you feel and how much clearer you're thinking. Your sleeping can improve. There's a whole slew of positive benefits that come along with this. So you'll see that as you continue and you progress, the momentum of the entire project is going to pick up. You're going to get excited. You're going to love to see the corner of banker boxes with paperwork completely disappear and be, shred, all of those things. You're going to love it. I would definitely say that you are either going to start in one room or with one category. So I have a client right now and we are specifically working on her books. So that is one category of items. And we're doing that because we know that we're going to sell those books, and it doesn't make sense to start just in a bedroom with the books and then a couple weeks later go into the library with the books. We want to do one category all at one time. Depending upon how your home is set up, if you have a craft room or a sewing room, if you have, it could be anything. I'm just trying to think, like a woodworking space. If you have that, you can start in that one specific room, and then that could be your easy place to start. You can just focus just on that one room, going through every single thing in that room. You will find that could be things kind of tucked away that you forgot about, that you want to pull out and re-examine. Grouping like items together, yes, absolutely. I definitely recommend this, especially when it comes to a kitchen. It is interesting when we start to open up cabinets and drawers and we start to pull everything out and we use that dining room table to be our almost like a display, and we sort of group everything together. We say, this is how many pots you have, this is how many coffee mugs, and then it's a little bit of a shock because you were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had that many of one particular item or category. When it's behind a cabinet or door or in a closet, no, you wouldn't. But when it's all pulled out and laid together, that could be the same thing with blankets. I had a client once, I think I counted upwards of 80 scarves, which is totally fine if you like scarves, but she didn't know she had that many because they were all scattered about the house. And when I collected them all together and showed her, she was a little bit surprised of how many she had, but seeing them all together, then she was able to pare down, and then she was able to select which ones she absolutely loved the most and that were her treasures. Oh, excuse me, my phone's on Do Not Disturb. Okay, finally, enlisting the help of family and friends. So don't be embarrassed. Don't be, think that you're the only person that's going through this. Quite literally, everybody is. So, you want to encourage your family and friends to come by to make this a fun event. Again, not making this a chore. We want to make sure that we have as much help as we absolutely need. So if you have, mobility issues, making sure that you get somebody there who can help you lift things, carry things, take things up and down the steps, whatever you may need. This is labor intensive. It's not like this is just sitting and making some decisions. While that is also emotionally intensive, this can be labor as well. So while you're getting help from them, offer also to be the help for that person. I will say that a shadow, this is what we call shadowing, when an organizer comes in and is not actually making the decisions for the clients, because that's not what we do, but having somebody in the room is a shadow, and that will sometimes force somebody to make those tough decisions, and that is very important. So being a shadow for somebody, and then also asking for somebody else to be the shadow for you. And I want to open it up because I know that was a lot. Does anybody have questions? Are you working on anything that you're unsure of how to move? Is there anything that you are struggling with that you need a little bit of guidance or support on?
Feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question for Caitlin.
Caitlin,
Yes.
I think you've done a terrific job with a lot of things as far as going slow, doing one room or one group of one item at a time, one item category. You've really been helpful just with all the ideas you have, and I'm so happy to know about you and your business
No, thank you so much.
and that they had you on today.
I appreciate that.
Yes, my daughters, know that I have too many things. I don't, it's not extreme clutter, but it's kind of, not the best house as far as everything tidy. Some rooms are really tidy, others are so-so. But they were going to come in and send my husband and I away and just do the whole house in a weekend, they thought. Doesn't that sound horrible? Yes. So I almost agreed to it. I said, no, well, you're going to pick up my paint. You're going to take, no. So this gives me a more reasonable way of doing it.
Yeah,
And
no,
of course, maybe getting help along the way to why I have so many things.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I will say too that if we were to receive that phone call that somebody wanted us to come in with the homeowner or the essentially the homeowner being out, we would not accept that because
Right.
you are so critical to the process.
Right.
And we cannot make those decisions for you. Only you can. I could come in and think that a little piece of thread or a ribbon may not mean something, but that could be, the last thing that you have of your grandmother or something. So we wouldn't. You absolutely have to be a part of the process.
Right. Which is nice to hear, because it's just like, oh, that really hurt. It's like, oh, this is stressing me out. No, get rid of us and do it yourself, right? Oh my gosh. So yeah, but thank you.
Of course.
I have, here I am. Thank you, Caitlin. This is really helpful. I have a question that might be a different kind of question. We just got done cleaning out my mom's house. She moved to skilled care, and so everything's done. I'm wondering, this was a really affirming presentation for me and helping me to know that I did everything okay, and handled it all right. My siblings don't all agree with that.
Yeah.
And I know there's an idea that I used to have as well, but I know that the market is just changing. And so where heirlooms and antiques, like unless they're super high end, they're just not of value. And so I'm wondering if there are any articles or like tangible things that I could show my siblings if I decided to go that route to assure them that we didn't get ripped off by the dealer who did come and took many things. They thought we should have gotten way more money for it. I interviewed 4 different people, and this was like the best. Like in the end, it was like hard to even find anyone. Like we had people who came and said, no, this is not high-end stuff. We're not going to work with you. Um, and they are not understanding that. And I mean, they're complicated dynamics, but if you have any suggestions or whether or not I should just let it all go.
I would think so. I don't know any articles off the top of my head, but I think that you're right. And I think what you're hitting on is that it's subjective. You know, what is the value of a chair? Well, the value of the chair is what somebody would pay for it. So I think you did the absolute best thing, which is that you got 4 opinions and you went with the highest one, which is, yeah. The other thing to consider is how much time, I mean, I know you're probably talking tens of thousands of dollars. That is the difference between what your siblings think that they could have gotten versus what you did actually get. So yeah, that's not a little bit of money. But how much time and energy is worth chasing after that difference and that gap essentially to try to recoup it? I don't know of any articles, but I think you did what the best that you could. And 4 opinions, 4 quotes on it. I mean, how much more? It's a lot of time because you had to research that, you had to get those people out there, you had to work with them or send them photos or have that come out. I mean, that's a good amount of work. And if 4 people are telling you across the board that either it's not worth something or that it's only worth X amount of dollars, then that's 4 expert opinions. So I think you did the best. I'm sorry to hear that this family dynamics or something. This is a fine line of walking between an organizer and a therapist, and we got to make sure that we're on the side of the.
So, Anita, I wanted to tell you what my brother did. My brother had someone come into my parents' house, 4 stories, and pay them to take away everything in the house, and did not tell anybody but what one sister that was there. Gave away brand new stuff that my sister wanted for her kids. Didn't tell anybody. He'll never be forgiven. I've cut off all contact. I mean, that to me was, my mother and dad, lived in this house for 40 years. So you did it the right way. So just realize what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with a brother that trashed a family home with not letting anybody know. Actually paid them to take everything in the home out. Didn't go through anything. And she had collections that were weird, but she had, like, I'd say 1,000 books, 40 years of National Geographic, 200 paintings. Who knows what had value? He paid somebody. So this is my pet peeve. So that's the absolute wrong way to do it.
Yeah, I think definitely working with the family, communication is key. So definitely you don't want that situation either. So I think what Barbara is saying is completely correct. You did everything within your power, and knowing that you did, and then sort of letting it go. And if people are upset with it, that's their perceived value of what they think an item is worth. But 4 expert have said otherwise. So yeah, sorry.
Any other questions or comments for Caitlin?
Wait. Oh, shoot.
Anything else? Okay, Caitlin.
All right,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Caitlin, do you know any counselors that really kind of specialize in emotional attachments to things or having too many things?
It kind of depends on what angle we're talking about.
Mhm.
You may not need, okay. Okay. A licensed a licensed therapist or a psychiatrist is definitely helpful, and it is helpful to have on site. I would say that if you are working with your health insurance and if they have a mental health program, to give them a call and see if they can go through their database to find somebody that specializes in that.
Uh-huh.
There are a lot of really great resources within the community that if you cannot go with that option, that you can sort of supplement, but definitely looking into what your health insurance will cover and finding those resources and then partnering with some supplemental things. So with SOS, we do NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, as well as emotional freedom technique, which is called tapping. And you can find YouTube videos for those online that are specific to what it is that you're needing, and those will help move some of the emotions. That is some of the lighter stuff. Like we're talking a little bit of stress, manageable,
Right.
not everyday things. If we're talking a
What
little
is
bit
the
more
name of it?
chronic,
You said SOS. What was that? Or is that your
it,
business?
it is. It's spaces organized and styled.
Uh-huh.
But if we're talking a little bit more chronic, that there are some deep, issues there, then yes, definitely reach out and see if you can find somebody within the network that will be able to come and be on site or via Zoom. So Zoom is super helpful, and we found that definitely during COVID that we could Zoom therapists in to the home, and we could do sessions in tandem with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know. Okay. All right. Thank you. What was the thing called tapping? What did you say that was?
EFT, emotional
Videos.
freedom technique. Yep. If you do a quick YouTube search for that, it's a way that you can clear some of the emotions. Again, this is very small emotions that you maybe like stress or
Right.
anxiety,
Right.
some of those things. Yeah. And that is a great thing that we actually encourage the client. So if we're mid-session and something comes up that's a little bit triggering, if they need to take a break, we'll take a break and take a breather, and then we'll come back. Maybe it's getting a drink of water or a snack. Maybe it's just walking
Right.
away from the room. But then we'll encourage to do a round of tapping before coming back in and working with that item again. So
Okay.
it's not super overwhelming.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't think I need extreme. It's not that, I mean, it's very livable. It doesn't look like it's not, my home is nice enough. It's just have
Mhm.
too many in some rooms. Okay. Wonderful. That's helpful. That's helpful about the insurance too.
Yeah, of course.
hmm Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Any questions for Caitlin? Um, I, s- I see, Carolyn, if you're speaking to us, you're muted.
Okay, sorry.
That's
Hi.
okay.
So I would appreciate, I came in a little late, and I would appreciate having the screen where there was information about Caitlin and the business, and that just kind of went by really fast.
Just a second.
I have her
Yeah.
name, but
So
yeah,
I
so
also
we
want
can,
to mention we are recording this session and it will be available on our website. And so her presentation will also be there if you need to take a look back or refer back to something she said as well.
thank you.
Share the screen too that has the information. Hopefully it's sharing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, it is. We can see some other things on your screen, but we do see that as well.
Okay, cool, wonderful. So this is my email as well as phone number and website. You could also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and then we have a podcast series that talks all about specific episodes. We'll talk about different things. So whether
Good to
that be
know. I didn't realize
yeah.
you did that.
Yeah, it's called Spaces Organized and Style, the podcast. So you can search for that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and even some YouTube as well. So if we record via video that day, it'll be up on YouTube. And sometimes that's just about, it could be about anything. We do beauty products, we do makeup, there's all sorts of things on there, a lot of goodies.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, last opportunity. Anyone else have any comments or questions for Caitlin? We have just a couple of minutes. Okay, Caitlin, any closing words?
I am
from you?
really happy that I was able to share with you guys all the information that I have about this. Go slow. I wish you the best of luck. And if you have any questions in the future, please feel free to reach out. We're always here to help and answer anything that we can and provide resources.
Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you being here. This has been so informative. And I also want to again say thank you to Oakview National Bank, who is sponsored and enabled Aging Together to bring this presentation. So thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank
Thank you.
Ready?
Bye-bye.
Bye.